familiar agenda, I think, because we have so many standing items, but always interesting to see how each area is progressing. So let's make a start with apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Chair, apologies received from Claire Swales, Powys Chief Executive, Claire Bryant, Office of the Police and Crime Commissioner, Carl Cooper, Chair of the Powys Teaching Health Board, Duncan Hamer from Welsh Government, Christine Harley from HM Prisons and Probation Service, Rhys Morris from Welsh Government, Emma Palmer, Chief Executive of Powys County Council, but I believe Diane Reynolds, Director of Economic Development Growth, is covering in her absence, and Hayley Thomas, Chief Executive of the Powys Teaching Health Board.
Okay. Grand. Gareth had his hand up. Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. Could I also add apologies from Catherine Mealing-Jones, Chief Executive of Banyr National Park Authority, and I'm here in her place this afternoon. Thanks.
Thank you and welcome. That's absolutely fine. It looks like every organisation is properly represented, so I think we're fine. That's absolutely fine. Great. So let's proceed with the agenda. So we're going to move. We're going to do the minutes. Pardon. Excuse me. So the minutes of the previous meeting are on pages 5 to 8 of our pack. So what we need to do is just record that they're a true record of what took place. Is there anything in the minutes that people wish to raise as either? Well, let's start with accuracy. Is everybody happy with accuracy? Thank you. Is there anything else that anybody wishes to raise as a matter arising that doesn't occur later on the agenda? No. Okay, I need, therefore, please a proposer and a seconder for that, for the minutes, if I could. So proposed by Gavin Bowen. Thank you very much, Gavin. Seconded by Ewan. Thank you, Ewan. Ewan Cray is seconding. Thank you. So do we have to take a vote? Well, I'll take silence as acquiescence, if that's okay. So if everybody's happy, we'll proceed on that basis and move into the substantive part of the agenda. So thank you very much. So we're leaving 3.1 to slightly later on the agenda when officers arrive who can speak to that item. If we go therefore to 3.2, Catherine, if you could take us through 3.2.
Yes,
please.
Certainly.
Yeah.
So 3.2 is about the evidence and insight area of work. So overall, in terms of the first quarter, so April to June, we are on track in terms of our work programme. So in terms of some of the activity that has taken place, you can see it's all listed in the report, but just to pick out a few of the items, the Regional Partnership Board and Public Service Board had a sort of joint workshop to invite different stakeholders along to explore what a Powys public sector digital identity could look like. So the outputs of those that workshop are still sort of being considered in terms of what the next steps are. So we should see that come through next quarter. We undertook some engagement, if you recall. So they were in-person locality events and a young person's event where over 100 people came along, or young people. So that was aggregated and analysed during the quarter. So the findings of that have been shared with stakeholders accordingly. There was also something around co-production and what that means to the different organisations to ensure that we've got a consistent approach. So some work was undertaken around that, and you can see in the pack there is a draft poster explaining that if you're having a look. Also, we've conducted the Sustainable Powys, so from the Powys County Council side, and the Better Together from the Health Board side. Some joint engagement activities were undertaken there, and PAVO also was part of that, as well as SLICE. We've also been supporting the climate emergency work stream in terms of developing a survey to capture information, and that has been analysed to support a Powys-wide climate change risk assessment, and the findings from that are being used to inform the work stream. They've also been looking, it's that time of the thing again, that we're looking at the population needs assessment. So this is something that we have to do as a part of the Social Services Wellbeing Act. So we're at that midpoint review, and so we're looking at that and how we can undertake it in a proportionate way. We're also looking as well at how we can bring the wellbeing assessment and the population needs assessment together, because at the moment they're two separate things, and looking at how those two could be considered to reduce duplication. So for next, the activity that's underway at the moment, which we'll be reporting at the next board really, is to undertake a data maturity assessment across all PSB partners to look at how we can use that to look to see where we are. Funding is a big one, and we'll talk about it later. Scrutiny kind of picked up on that one as well for all the different work streams. So to look at what funding opportunities are available to help us do a little bit more, because some of the things we've got do require that in terms of co-production and other things. We've also been looking to align more with the healthy weights work stream to support them with the work that they're doing, and looking really to improve our information sharing mechanism. So we've already undertaken a bit of work into this area, but it's not working. People in certain organisations can't access the files, folders and teams as they should. So we're looking to improve that to make it easier for people to work more collaboratively across organisations. And I think, unless anybody's got any questions, that's a bit of a roundup of what the group have been doing.
Great. Don't see any hands. Do you want to deal with risks, Catherine?
Yes, so we have two risks. So one is around funding. So if we don't get some additional funding, there'll be certain items on the work programme that we wouldn't be able to fully deliver, mostly around co-production and sort of going out and about and resourcing that. So that is one that we're always exploring things that are available. And then the other one was around data sharing. So if we don't have agreements implemented in a timely manner, then obviously, there will be an effect on, or an impact even, on what data we can work on together. We've got a wellbeing information bank, which is great, publicly available information, but there will be other items, I'm guessing, which we can share, but maybe not in the public domain, may have to be on a shared workspace, not on a website.
Right. Are there any questions around Catherine's report? I have one. Oh, Gavin.
Yeah, I guess a point rather than a question, and it's really positive to see that we're exploring the opportunities for reducing the need for duplication of effort, and I guess there's a sort of a follow on from that. This will be common to the other PSBs as well, and it's how we sort of look to both share our intent and progress, and then tap into that sort of learning elsewhere. So there was that specific example given there in terms of that the well-being assessment with population needs assessment. Is that something that we need to take away to try to see whether there's any learning from elsewhere, or that we can tap into or share in terms of what we found ourselves?
Catherine?
Yeah, so we've got the Welsh Government Exchange Network, which you can use to promote to other organisations around. We're in touch, and we're in regular touch with the Future Generations Commissioner's Office in terms of that, so we can always learn from others, and we do look around at what other people have got. But I think actually we're doing all right ourselves with the publicly, with the Wellbeing Information Bank and what we've got. We had a glowing report back from our last one, so I think we can look around at learning, but I think what we've got is right, but it's just trying to pull the two together. Last time we did have a shared calendar, but we still ended up with two reports at the end of it. So it's just to reduce duplication if we can, because they are two sort of separate things. One's looking at overall well-being, isn't it, against the 4 pillars, and then the other one's a bit more specific around population needs against the different groups. So it is a bit of a challenge, but I know that people are working hard to kind of raise awareness of this within Welsh Government, so that they're aware of the kind of of having to produce lots of different things due to different acts and statutory legislation. I can't even say the word. So it is underway, and it's something that we're looking at, and we'll try and promote wherever we can, because if they were put together, it would make more sense.
Okay, thanks for the question, Gavin. Data sharing. So you've got it as a risk, Catherine. What is the blockage? Where are the likely blockage points? But we know about Wikis. Leave Wikis to one side because we're all aware of that. But in other respects, for these purposes.
Yeah, it's just that our data people within each organisation, as long as they're on board and can understand why we're sharing information and the benefit of doing so, having those agreements in place will mean that we're able to sort of share. For instance, it's not just social care. Gavin, we had in the last wellbeing assessment, we based it fully, didn't we, really, on the Mid Wales area statement from Natural Resources Wales, which is great. But we know that when you look at Mid Wales, that is not just Powys, it's Ceredigion as well. So it's about having the right information at the level that we can make some evidence-based decisions on and use to inform what we're doing. So some of it is just, making sure our data people work together, have that in place, and then we can make sure that we've got the right things in place before we start to explore that.
Okay. No, I'm just interested that, I mean, we do tend to think about health and social care, but actually this goes right across, doesn't it?
Yeah, so it's the environment, the social care side of things, economy, all that stuff, which I'm sure Di would share information on, and the community. Yeah, so it's a whole wealth of well-being.
There's an issue. Okay, sorry, I don't want to labour the point. There's an issue about sharing, but also there's an issue about accessibility, about the ability of each organisation to access each other's data. Now, I know there's data protection issues and it's all very, very complicated, but to what extent can we do that? Share data sets in that sense, other than when somebody requests something, rather just actually have access to it.
Well, obviously we have the cloud now. Don't get too technical here. But we've got our data people here. We're in close touch with the health board team. And Gavin, I know when we did the last wellbeing assessment, we were, things have moved on since then, haven't they? That was only sort of 3 years ago, but technology has changed. So there are ways of joining up data. We don't need to have access to the, so that shouldn't be a problem. We just need to make sure we've got the formalities in place before we explore. So we've, been through the first year now. So year 2 is about getting ourselves prepped now, ready for the next iterations and upgrades of our, and making sure that we're adding to the wellbeing bank as well.
Okay, thanks. That's fine. Good. Okay, so there's no further questions. We can move on to the next item on the agenda. Now that where should we go next? If we can't do healthy weights, what can we do instead? Sorry, I'm going back to the agenda, top of the agenda again. Climate emergency. Let's do climate emergency then, if that's okay. And we've got supplementary items have come through. Has everybody got access to those?
Could I just come in, Chair, on that item? I think my colleague Liz Hutchins is coming to speak to the item, but she's only able to join us at 3, I think.
Oh, right. Okay.
Apologies for that.
Okay, so we'll postpone that one too. That's grand. Let's go to the annual report then. PSB annual report, pages 25 to 76 in our pack. If that's okay. Who's taking us through this? Who's speaking to this? Catherine?
Oh, sorry. Yes, that's me.
There's a pregnant silence there. I thought, what's happened?
No, that is me. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at the annual report here contained within the pack. So you'll see we've got the Welsh and the English in there. We've been utilising our new technologies over here. So if anyone has any sort of specific questions, so we took this to scrutiny earlier this week, and we had some really good scrutiny going on there, to be fair. So you'll see in the supplementary pack we have got the observations that they provided there. So mainly just to sort of highlight, one of the general observations was around the funding position. So all of the three work streams all sort of stated about their funding and need for funding to ensure that they can deliver. So that was something that they picked up on. They also really wanted to mention to you all and thank you for the creative solutions, and that, you know, being bold, insightful and innovative was really key to driving some of this sustainability across the partnership. So yeah, we had some really good feedback. So I won't go into all of the detail, but you can see it there on the supplementary agenda. They gave some feedback for each of the sort of specific steps. And I know for our step, really, they sort of said a big one was to promote it a bit more widely, because lots of people still don't know about the Wellbeing Information Bank and things. So we're going to look at how we can do that and promote it a bit more with town and community councils and schools, etc. So yeah, in terms of the recommendations they provided then against the draft annual report, they really wanted to ensure that we do, you know, as a priority step, have clarity regarding the funding, particularly for the responding to the climate emergency step. But, you know, if that work has to continue, that was something that they wanted to focus on. There was also a recommendation that we have a high level risk register, and that we could review this at the quarterly meetings to just, you know, identify any risks, mitigate them and manage those throughout the plan. So the other one was around looking at the key performance indicators and timescales against the wellbeing plan objectives to ensure that that we have those to monitor where we are and how we're doing. And then finally, it was that if we as a group here could review the national indicators. So if you look in the annual report, you'll see them at the end. So these are national indicators that are published as part of the Future Generations Act. These are sort of big long-term indicators. So they felt that we could look at these and be assured that they do align with our wellbeing plan and objectives. So yeah, and overall, apart from some economy ones, the indicators are signalling good things.
Good. Excellent. Does anybody have any questions around the annual report? Or indeed the scrutiny observations of it? Which I have to say, I agree with Catherine. I think they've done a good job there. Really good job. In terms of creation risk register, how are we going to go about? I mean, do we not have one of those already? I thought we had a risk register.
Well, I'm sure each organisation does in its own
we don't
right.
have a common one, right?
No, but we can there's something we can look at, sort of, you know, and get ready for next time behind the scenes, and put it somewhere so that people can populate those.
So this would be a risk register for the PSB, risk specific to this PSB, not the ones that obviously each organisation has anyway.
Yes, right. For these three. Oh, Connor's got his.
Connor.
Oh, thank you, Chair. It was just to say that each step does have their own risk register for their specific step, but I think yes, that recommendation relates to the Powys PSB itself having that high level risk register, and we can accommodate that on the council's JCAD core risk management software. And I think it's quite simple to, I think it might even be ready to go sort of imminently. So as long as the PSB was content with us doing that, then we can set that up and review it at the next meeting, or and agree what risks should go onto that register.
Yeah, that's a good plan. So we'll agenda that for next time, if that's okay. Great, excellent. Is there anything else that members would like to raise around this? Merid.
Yeah, thank you, diolch, and I think it's a great annual report, so thank you for those colleagues who have been working on it. And it's just reflecting on an earlier point really that Catherine raised, which I think was important, around the wellbeing sort of needs sort of assessment, aligning with closer to the RPB and noting the scrutiny's feedback around funding risks and how creative all the the three programs have been, and I sort of agree there, as well as probably the needs assessment. I think it'd be helpful just to align some of the priorities across the RPB as well, and we've been looking at that through the healthy weights element, and particularly the Start Well programme, alignment, etc. And whilst funding is a risk to all of these, because no funding flows through the PSB, there is funding that flows through the RPB. And I think we need to be probably broader in our thinking, as well as aligning the needs assessment, aligning actually if these are our priorities for the population, what are the overlaps then in the PSB and the RPB priorities, and how whether that opens up funding opportunities for sustainability for some things, or project funding as well, where slippage may exist.
That's a good point. Yeah, thank you. So, so in relation to that, Catherine, I know there is work going on at Welsh Government level around how we can rationalise all of this, these different, as you say, there's lots of legislation and there's lots of different bodies set up to implement the legislation, and there's a lot of overlap, as Mary's just been saying. What has that? I mean, I know things are a bit difficult down in Cardiff at the moment, but I mean, has there been any progress in the last few months on that agenda?
We can find out, but I know we fed each council, or each, PSB is sort of fed back from their perspective, and I know mayors, when they're both sort of done at the same time, same sort of, it's the same group of people that are pulling these things together. So we have fed back in terms of the logistics and practicalities of doing both assessments at the same time. But yeah, we can find out and see where that is, really.
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we just get on with ourselves at local level, isn't there? To strip out any duplication, or as says, to maximise funding opportunities. The RPB can access funding, and which the PSB can't, generally speaking. Well, why not take advantage of that? So, okay, great. Thanks for raising that, Mess. That's a really good point. Grateful. Good. Okay, so it seems we've done the annual report.
So is everybody happy with the annual report? Any comments? Are you happy to approve and endorse the report?
What happens to it now? It gets published, does it?
Yes, it will be published, and we'll send a copy off to Welsh Government as well.
Okay, great. See, no dissent, so that's a good sign. Right. Okay, so we can proceed. Right, what's next on the agenda? We can receive the. Do you want to do item 7, Mez, the Public Health Wales Shaping Places verbal update?
Yes, I'm happy to do so. So
brilliant, if you wouldn't mind, thank you.
Okay, yes, thank you. So at the last meeting, I highlighted that Public Health Wales, in partnership with Exec Directors of Public Health across Wales, has secured some Health Foundation sort of funding to roll out sort of a programme in support of sort of PSBs or systems approach, linking to shaping sort of places for well-being. There's a national board sort of set up, and as part of that board, they've been going through a process of refining what would be sort of helpful in support of sort of areas, and they've come up with 3 areas that they're focusing on. One of them around child poverty, climate sort of change, and communities in terms of places. And we sort of asked PSB members whether people wanted to be part of learning sets in support of those sort of areas. And it was really pleasing to hear that there were reps from across those 3 areas, because there were links also back to us as a PSB, which is wider than a PSB as well, because there's a child poverty group led by the local authority. So they were reps, and they've started the learning set. They spent 2 days in Cardiff last month, and positive feedback from there. So that's the main bit, really, is looking at systems approach, and the learning element will be from those individuals from Powys who are part of the learning sets, how they feel then they want to feedback, or how it's applied in our working areas sort of locally. So I'm not sure whether anybody's on from this afternoon who attended. Catherine, I don't believe so, but happy to be corrected if there is a rep from the PSB today who did attend the 2-day course. don't think anybody's here today.
Don't think, no, I don't think, no.
Yeah. So the plan is that that learning set will sort of, continue. It's learning about systems work, and for us, it's about looking at what's helpful from that course to apply it in the work that we're doing sort of locally.
Right.
I'm happy to circulate something outside of the meeting as well, if that's helpful.
Yeah, that'd be good. I think that would be extremely helpful to members to understand what this is about. Definitely. Good. Are there any questions for Mez? No. Great. Okay, thank you very much. Shall we go to the fire alarm item? That'd be okay. Ewan, are you leading on this?
I am indeed, Chair. Apologies, colleague Peter Greenslade isn't with us. I'll take you through it. It's only a very quick update, really, a position update for partners on the meeting today. As a service, we made a decision, and the authority made a decision back in April, that as of July the 1st, just gone, that we would change the way we respond to automatic fire alarms. They take up a huge portion of our actual activity as a fire and rescue service across the whole of Mid and West Wales. So the policy change is now in place, and it probably affects a number of the organisations at today's meeting, to tell you the truth. So we will only attend automatic fire alarms now that are occurring at domestic premises, so private dwellings, flats, etc., nursing and care homes, and then premises that have fire safety deficiencies listed against them, so places that have got prohibitions or enforcement notices, etc. So the policy has been in place for a couple of weeks. There are reasons behind us changing this policy, and there are a number of reasons, including disruptions to our activities in-house, but things like road risk, which we don't consider that much really. If we're responding to places unnecessarily, then we want to reduce that road risk. The effect on the environment, we drive big heavy trucks, and if we are turning up the mileage unnecessarily, then there's an effect on the environment there. And of course, let's not forget disruption to the employers themselves, really, when alarms go off at these properties, and the impact of that on productivity at these places, etc. So the policy is in place, and we're 17 or so days in now, and we're looking at between 4 and 5 incidents per day being reduced across Mid and West Wales. So they've tot up after a full year, really. So it's just an update, Chair. Thank you.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder how widely known the change of policy is now. I mean, obviously reporting to us, and that's right. I'm very grateful for that, and completely understandable. Change of policy sounds thoroughly sensible, actually. But does anybody have any question? No. That's good. Excellent.
Okay, sorry, James. Not a question as such, but just to flag that we're similarly, again for a number of different reasons and drivers, changing the approach that we've got in terms of our flood warning system. That's something which we'll be communicating through the local resilience forum across Wales. But again, that's come off the back of a review of the current arrangements. It's been partly driven by some technological drivers as well, and contractual commitments, but it's given us an opportunity to really review the approach that we've got, understand whether it's delivering what we need it to deliver, and really sort of look to maximise the benefit of the flood warning system. So that's something that will be coming to the in this case to the Powys LRF to share that in more detail, and there'll be wider communications off the back of that. So yeah, I think there's probably a few parallel things that are happening for different organisations looking at current service provision and potential changes.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, we'll wait and see those, and when you bring them to us. Thank you. So we've had some members joining. Welcome all. Thank you very much for joining us. Is this therefore an opportune moment to go back to the agenda in order? So, Mez, are the right people in the room now for item 3.1?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. If that's okay,
Yeah,
with yourselves.
away.
Yeah, right. So thank you, Chloe and Fiona, for joining us. So, and thank you, Chair, for moving around the agenda to accommodate us. So the healthy weight, as you know, is a priority of the PSB, and the reason we asked for it to be changed around because Chloe and Fiona were actually leading a strategic sort of group today, and we felt it important really that action went ahead. So within your packs, there is a sort of presentation on progress. And in terms of just to remind colleagues, the priority areas that agreed in partnerships are children sort of under age 5 and access to healthy foods from families. And as part of that work, there were evidence-based work completed by Anna and Fiona around priority areas, which are sort of breastfeeding, introduction to solid food, which is sort of weaning, cooking skills, and affordability of healthy food. And within the pack as well, we've included progress for some of those areas where task and finish groups are sort of established. And this is where I'll bring in sort of colleagues as well. So in terms of the affordability of healthy food, so this work has been looking at Healthy Start scheme, which provides sort of funding for eligible parents to buy healthy foods in terms of milk and healthy foods, etc. And as part of that, Powys, as well as other areas of Wales, had lower uptake of this sort of scheme. And to understand some of that work, Fiona has been doing sterling work in getting needs to understand why is there low uptake, particularly when we need to address sort of poverty as well. So I'm just going to bring Fiona in now just to share a bit about the work and getting underneath the detail and the progress in terms of outcomes that have been achieved. Over to you, Fiona.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I've been working with a wide team, including members of the council, for the past year or so, looking at uptake of Healthy Start. I think rurality has quite a big impact on it, but also parents are actually saying that lack of information in retailers about the scheme put them off applying for it, that they were embarrassed, and that anecdotally they'd heard of people who had presented a card in store and been turned away. So that was deterring people from signing up. So one of the pieces of work we did was we got some resources developed, from the national site, and we shared those with retailers across Powys. Starting with the areas of lowest uptake and highest deprivation, which were Ystrad and Newtown. And we saw the uptake rise quite dramatically in those areas. There have been some issues with the national reporting, but those have been resolved now. But yes, the areas that we've worked in have maintained those higher uptakes. However, across the county, I think because of the low numbers, just a drop of 1 or 2 people can result in a fall of a few percentage points month by month. So at the moment, we have 62% uptake. Ystrad and Newtown continue to be above where they were when we started giving out the resources. And some other areas that have increased, Knighton has increased quite a lot because the members of the Pathfinder team were working there. Other things we've done, we've worked with colleagues across the council in Flying Start, in schools and preschools, to make sure that as many colleagues as possible are promoting and signposting parents to the scheme, because even though midwives and health visitors signpost parents to the scheme, people become eligible and then drop out of eligibility. So it's important that throughout all stages of childhood, they're reminded about the scheme. So yes, so that's just a brief update.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's okay to come back to me now, Chair?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. And I think what Fiona demonstrates there is the importance of changing the system, isn't it, really? And how what we want is that anybody who works in the early sort of years and have contacts with family to be aware of the scheme and to ask the question, really, to support people to join that sort of scheme. So ongoing work there, but great, really, in Newtown and Ystrad and Lais, where there's been targeted work. And as part of the Pathfinder as well, having sort of impact. So what that shows, that we can have impact with targeted work. So it means that we know what works as well. So I'm then going to bring Chloe in now as well. So another area has been around cooking skills. And again, great work in partnership with the local authority and Health Board to secure some funding to roll this cooking scheme out. So Chloe, is that okay if I bring you in? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks, Mez. Yeah, so welcome everyone. Hi, everyone. So with the Cooking Counts initiative, this is one element of the whole cooking skills, which is one of the 4 themes identified under the whole systems approach. And so with Cooking Counts, this is a partnership working with ourselves in public health, with health protection team, so Greg, Ryan, his team, and with dietitians as well. So between the 3 organisations of leading on a new initiative aimed for 19 years plus on cooking and numeracy. So looking at ways of incorporating numeracy in a slightly different way on a practical, on the ground level. Just completed our first cohort and then planning for the next cohort, and uptake has been good, and social relations and all the other avenues have been explored as well. So we're doing a bit of a pre and post evaluation, so we've got some really good outcomes coming out from that. So yeah, that's one element. And then the cooking skills, we've just come off the call, like Mez said, to our strategic group meeting and exploring all of the Kumu map, so the mapping initiative that was completed on the back of the stakeholder event, and looking at all the influences and the drivers, the barriers, and homing in on the certain area which is early years, what's been identified. So the early years provision around procurement, around trainers, so train the trainer initiative around ambassadors, they're changing the social norms, and the Cooking Counts, which is one element of the task and finish, will feed into that with the evaluation work. So lots of learning that's been taken.
Okay, thank you, Chloe. It's great, isn't it? And I think this is where the team and the partnership work have been very creative in looking at cooking skills as a priority area, and then securing and leveraging some funding, which will be until December. And our ask really of partners there is to continue to work, and also to continue to promote the cooking skills programme to make sure we can maximise participation going forward as well into the autumn. So thanks, Chloe, there, great work. And then one of the other areas we want to ask partners today and bring you up to speed on is breastfeeding. So breastfeeding is a priority under our sort of area of work, and what within your pack we're highlighting is the Breastfeeding Welcome Scheme. So I'm going to ask Fiona to describe what a Breastfeeding Welcome Scheme is, and then we'll come back with an ask of partners as well around our plan to launch that scheme in August. So Fiona.
Yes, hello everyone again. Yes, so as part of the breastfeeding work at one of the stakeholder meetings, the Breastfeeding Welcome Scheme was raised as an opportunity to support mothers out in the community. So it's a scheme that it's aims to support and empower mothers and families to feel confident when feeding out and about, and to normalise breastfeeding, in that any mother who was giving their baby a bottle would never feel anxious about feeding in a public space. Whereas as a midwife, I know that many women were reluctant to feed in a public space because they'd heard mothers who'd been asked to stop or move, or made to feel embarrassed. So that this Breastfeeding Welcome Scheme aims to address that, and to support businesses and organisations to be more breastfeeding friendly. basically, the scheme, businesses will sign up and they pledge that they will, if a breastfeeding mother comes into their organisation, they will provide a welcome and somewhere to sit. If they're able to, they may provide a glass of water, but that's not essential. And also, they will not ask the breastfeeding mother to move, but if somebody else makes a complaint or is worried about the breastfeeding mother being there, then they will be asked to move the person who makes the complaint. It is a legal right for mothers to breastfeed out and about, and it's important that we show our support of that. Breast milk is the absolute best nutrition for babies and offers health benefits to mothers and babies, lifelong benefits to mothers and babies. So the scheme in Powys, as we mentioned before, partnership working in the whole systems approach has been absolutely fantastic. We're working with the council, with Ryan and Greg's team, and they've been speaking with Emma Palmer, and she's very keen for the scheme to be adopted across the Powys County Council. In the Health Board, our hope is that all public-facing areas of the Health Board as well will sign up to be breastfeeding welcome. The birth centres obviously already are breastfeeding welcome, but they will probably be the first people to sign up to it to demonstrate, their commitment. And PAVO have also expressed a keenness to be involved as well. So I think it just provides an opportunity to support breastfeeding mothers and to demonstrate our commitment to an important health, well, not intervention, but a health benefit of breastfeeding. And that we're hoping that the launch will be on the 1st of August. This is our aim.
Yeah, thank you, Fiona. So really great, really. So as breastfeeding is one of our sort of priority, a systems approach then will be to sign up and roll out the breastfeeding welcome scheme, which basically means if you're breastfeeding, that it shows on a sticker either on the window or a wall or somewhere really that breastfeeding mothers can look out for, and it makes it just does that social norm perspective. As Fiona sort of says, we know the local authority are signing up as a health board. We've got agreement through exec as well, and Claire from PAVO. But equally, what we'd like is for all partners in PSB to consider that actually, if you do have premises in a local authority or even wider than the local authority area, that you'd consider thinking about joining the scheme if you've got premises that are open to the public, and as an organisations to just check whether you have got any policies that if you do have any mothers who are breastfeeding that can work, that how breastfeeding friendly the organisation is as well. And as a health board, volunteering Fiona's expertise here, would be more than happy to work on policies internally as well. So that's one ask, partners. And then second ask would be then, it is National Breastfeeding Week on the 1st to the 7th of August. And our plan would be then to launch the Powys Being Breastfeeding Welcome sort of friendly during that week. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Anne Watkins put a question in the chat. Don't know, would you want to have a quick look at that?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not quite sure with my Chloe, I can see the chat. So focus on healthy weights, yeah. So and what consideration broader exercise, physical activity, access facilities, etc. Yeah. So the whole systems approach is looking at healthy weight, and obviously being active is equally as important. There is evidence to show quite clearly that if we can influence what we call obesogenic environments around what influences where people can have healthy food, etc., planning, access to processed food, or what we looked at in terms of the evidence base in the under fives, what would be the key influences. What we do know from the evidence base is that lifestyle patterns are actually influenced by the age of 7. And for those under 5, very much influenced by the environment and care providers around them. So what we're trying to do is a systems approach, is tackle a few areas really and try and get a systems approach in those areas to get some traction around outcomes. But being active is absolutely crucial. What we haven't talked about today is a healthy preschool scheme which promotes physical activity as well as oral health in terms of dental and as well as healthy eating. But perhaps we can bring that information back in a future meeting. I'm going to invite Chloe and Fiona, is there anything you want to add to that?
Sorry, didn't hear that. Sorry, didn't hear that bit, Mez.
If you want to, Mez was asking, did you want to add to what she's just said?
I think the focus, Anne had asked about the focus on diet, and those are the areas that were settled on in the strategic events, but also I think evidence points to diet being more influential with regard to healthy weight than exercise, although exercise obviously is very important. But as part of the work, we will be considering in the 0 to 5 range, sort of environment with regard to accessing healthy food. And, in that very broad sense, it will be considered. I don't know if you want to say anything, Fiona.
Yeah, no, thanks, Fiona and Mez. Yeah, no, and with regards to the 4 themes that have come through from the stakeholder event that are focused more on diet, but now that we've got the partnership approach and the working groups and the initial buy-in, I think this is almost the stage 1, and then potentially looking in the future, because it, like you say, and it contributes, it's all contributing factors, and part of that whole systems approach of working with the physical activity leads as well. So yeah, not to say it's not disregarded in the future.
So Anne has responded. You're welcome to. Okay, she says thank you, so she doesn't need to. No more needs to be said, so that's fine. Good. Are there any other questions or comments from members? If not, I just wanted to ask. I wonder about. I think this issue of awareness is really interesting, and how aware not just the general population, but even, say, elected members of Powys County Council or members of the Fire Authority or whoever, or indeed the Health Board, are aware of these initiatives. I'm thinking particularly Healthy Start. I mean, not all, but most county councillors are school governors as well. Some of them are chairmen of governors. And I just wonder, is it worth circulating more information to council members around these schemes? Mez?
Yeah, no, thank you. I think it'd be helpful. The governance is an interesting one, isn't it, really? And I presume there's a governance training programme, and if you felt it was appropriate, I'm sure we'd be happy to come along to, to talk about opportunities that could be influenced through the schools, through the governors, if that were to be helpful.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the schools that have the maximum contact with children, isn't it? Yes, a lot of them will be seen in their local GP surgeries, and I guess the GPs are well aware of these schemes. But just about all our children, not all, but the vast majority of our children go to school, and I just think it's a good opportunity to spread the word, because I bet there are a lot of families who are eligible for this, but just either don't know about it or too shy to apply or whatever, but it could be encouraged to do so. So
yes,
yeah,
we do share it with the Healthy Schools team, and they forward it on to, I think schools have a newsletter, so I think it is shared through that.
Oh, good. Okay. Thank you.
Another issue I didn't mention was that, and I think it has to be addressed at a national level, is that the scheme isn't available for, if you buy products online, if you do an online shop at supermarkets, you can't use the scheme then. And so for people who live, quite a long way from bigger places, then that's a bit of a barrier to using it.
Yeah, well, of course, in Powys, that's particularly pertinent, isn't it? Of course. Thank you very much. Well, that's a really interesting presentation. I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
I don't see anybody else with their hands up. Shout if I've missed you. Climate emergency. The are the right people in the room now for the climate emergency item 3.3?
Yes, I'm going to talk to that,
Brilliant.
if that's okay.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Liz, hello.
Hi.
Right, good. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. So, yeah, I'm Liz Hutchins, Senior Policy Advisor at Banner Brecon National Park Authority, and I'm also the climate convener for the Climate Working Group. I want to introduce my colleague Gareth Jones, who's also on the call and might come in and say something as well, and Malusi Moyo, who's on the call, who is the Climate Policy Officer working on the PSB project. I think he's here as well. Just going to share my screen and share a presentation just to walk you through the paper. Apologies for circulating the paper only yesterday. We put quite a lot of work into it and in fact had some quite late feedback which we wanted to incorporate. So I hope this is useful. Okay, yeah, this is just to focus the meeting really on some things that we would like your brains to be applied to. We've given an update in the board paper about the progress of phase 1, and I'll give some highlights in a moment. And we want to know if you're happy with that, if you've got any comments, any feedback. In particular, we're on track to be producing a strategic climate action plan for Powys, and we'd like to know if you would like the opportunity for that to be presented to you in December at the board meeting or at a separate meeting. We're really at this stage, we're kind of more than halfway through this phase 1, and we want to know if you see the value in continuing to have coordinated Powys climate-wide action. And we would like, if you do, we would like you to help us problem solve how we fund that going forward. So this is just to recap about what we're doing with this climate emergency step. So Powys Public Services Board made responding to the climate emergency a 5-year priority, and that was in the wellbeing plan that was consulted on publicly and adopted by this board. And the aim of the climate emergency step is really to scale up the action for a just transition. And so the justice bit is really important. We're also working really hard to make sure the net zero approach is maximising wellbeing in the most general sense, and also helping to support nature recovery in Powys. And the focus of this work is very much county-wide climate action. So all the public service organisations are contributing to the Welsh Government public sector net zero by 2030 work, and that's about focusing on your own operational emissions and those associated with the services and activities and procurement. But the PSB work is talking about kind of a wider vision for Powys and a strategic approach to both net zero and to becoming more climate resilient. And we're taking an evidence-based and community-led approach. And the reason for that is that we feel we need to understand the scale and nature of the response that's needed. And that needs to be informed by local people, because it needs to be tailored to local circumstances. And it's really important to understand the scale of action that's needed, and otherwise we're just going to take some small steps of low-hanging fruit and not really move at the pace and scale that is needed. So moving on to where we're at with phase 1. So we've got some really chunky research and analysis that we're doing in relation to climate risk assessment, understanding the risks that are already posed to the people and nature in Powys and what they're projected to be in future, understanding the carbon footprint of Powys, where is the carbon attributable to Powys, where is that coming from, and not just what's called scopes 1 and 2, the carbon that's burnt within the parameters of Powys, but the embodied emissions in the things that we use and emissions in relation to land use. And we're also looking at a sequestration analysis. So what is the potential for nature to draw down excess carbon from the atmosphere within Powys? How can that be scaled up in a way that is aligned with nature recovery goals, but also within really important goals around food production and economic development of the county. So that's going very well. It's on track. It's a lot of work, but we think we're on track to finish that by the end of December. We are defining some feasibility studies. So you'll be familiar with the funding that we had from the Shared Prosperity Fund. And as part of that, we've committed to 5 feasibility studies. And the idea is that the initial phase of research and analysis is helping us to identify where we need to have some deep dives to unlock. And we're at the stage of defining those feasibility studies. We've been doing extensive work on engaging stakeholders. So Powys is a huge county and there are a lot of people doing a lot of things. We're trying to, on behalf of the Public Service Boards organisations, start to make sure that we're reaching out to all of the major organisations and kind of key individuals who are catalysts within Powys. And the idea is that when we come to delivering an action plan, that won't just be done by public service organisations, it will be done by a huge number of stakeholders across Powys, and we're starting that. We're building those relationships. We're also exploring options to kind of map what climate action is already happening across Powys. You know, there's a huge amount of great work going on, but no one's drawn that together, and we don't know the total contribution that's making and what there is to be built upon. So we're trying to work out how best to do that. And then finally, to say that we are on track to develop a Powys climate action plan by the end of 2024, and that's building on the research. So we've analysed what the problem is, and this will be coming up with recommendations for or proposals for action across different sectors in Powys, and a kind of matrix of responsibility. Who's got most levers of power on all of this, and who's in a position to take action. So that's all kind of phase 1, and that's aimed to be finished by the end of December this year, and that's when the Shared Prosperity funding ends. And that funding has been supporting us to have a core team of 2 and a bit staff members on this, and to engage some consultancy. We've got a bit of a cliff edge of funding, and so we need to be starting to think right now about what does taking this coordinated Powys-wide climate action look like in the future. Well, clearly there's no point in developing a Powys climate action plan unless we're going to implement it. And so that's a huge piece of work, if anything, much bigger piece of work, to look at all the different prioritised actions, and either there needs to be a sort of a catalyst behind making sure that they happen. Even if the core responsibilities don't lie with the PSB organisations, we can collectively be a strategic voice for that action in all the different ways that we can, both with, you know, UK and Welsh government, with all various different stakeholders, regional CJC and so on. So that's one part of phase 2, very big part of phase 2. The second thing is strengthening stakeholders' ability to take action at scale. And so, you know, again, we want to make sure that stakeholders know what it is they can be doing and are supported to do that. The third thing, and it's come up in board meetings before, is there's there's rightly an appetite for public engagement and communications within Powys, tailored to Powys, about what can people do in their everyday lives to be part of the journey to net zero. How can they contribute, and also how can they benefit? And so there is some really good work happening, you know, to global level, at a UK level, at a Wales level, but we also need to make sure that those communications are filtering through and are really tailored in an appropriate way to Powys, various different Powys audiences. And so that's something we envisage should happen in phase 2. And then the last thing is kind of PSB climate coordination continuing. So there's a real potential for PSB organisations, for example, to use our collective clout in net zero procurement, and to give certainty to local businesses to invest and skill up to be part of low net zero skill products and services. And we can help you know, make an intervention into our local economy to support that that kind of pivot in our local economy. We can also do work together to make sure that when we're looking at strategic skills development, that is tailored in a way that would support the delivery of the climate action plan. So these are various things that could be taken forward in phase 2, using some kind of a collective approach, with the PSB continuing to have some centralised focus and resource on it. So we've been looking at how much resource might be needed, and in the papers there's some figures relating to different options of staffing levels, but then the question immediately is posed, where does this money come from? And so I am really interested to explore with you what you think is needed. Oops, I meant to go back. In terms of do you support a phase 2 of this work? Do you support actually implementing, working towards implementing this climate action plan and all the things that I've set out there? If so, how do you think that should be funded? Do you feel that it's appropriate for you as leaders of public sector organisations to have a conversation with Welsh Government about the PSB having some Welsh Government funding? The PSBs in general don't receive very much funding, but we know, there has to be some level of commitment to making them work. We've explored other public sector funded options. As I understand it, the Shared Prosperity Fund won't be re-granting a next round, and we've been keeping an eye on Innovate UK, but haven't seen relevant options available to us. We want to know what you think about crowdsourcing, whether we want to ask the public to support this. And apparently that does happen in other local authority areas. It's not something I'm very familiar with, but if others are, I'd be interested to know your approach to that. There's clearly philanthropy. There's things like the National Lottery. They tend to have very strict rules about not funding things that should be funded through the public sector anyway. So we'd be got the potential of maybe raising some money to work with communities on climate change, but seems to me, and from the investigations we've made so far, we're unlikely to get the really core funding for a kind of core secretariat that would be useful. And then the other option might be the public service board organisations themselves chipping in to contribute to some pooled funding for the PSB climate work. So none of those are comfortable options, are they? We'd all rather that money grow on trees and that we've all got loads to contribute, but we really do need to start having this conversation now, and I would like a steer from you about the direction of this work so that we can respond to that. So yeah, just that's what I wanted to share with you, and be really interested to hear your thoughts and reflections.
Grant, thank you, Liz. Right, so a lot of work's been done, and now we have to work out how it can continue. Conversation that is familiar to Diane, in particular in the local authority, but I suspect to Gareth and everybody in all the organisations as to how on earth we are going to progress with this now. Does anybody wish to comment on Liz has thrown out some challenges to us as to what we think we should do. So Gavin is first. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Liz, for the update there. That's really helpful and positive to see the progress that's being made. You know, the scale of the challenge is clear, and the need for action is that sort of pace of action is only growing. I mean, I think the focus of this has to be on additionality, and there's parallels with some of the stuff we were talking about earlier on in the meeting. What we really can't afford is duplication of work that we're already committed to delivering in terms of reporting, planning, whatever it might be, but also understanding what's being delivered or due to be delivered through other routes, where we're probably all sort of feeding in through different aspects. Sustainable farming scheme being one of those sort of end actions in terms of driving some of the outcomes. So I think there's a mapping bit here that I think is partly accounted for in some of the thinking, but maybe something that we can bring a bit further into the sort of the foreground. The other bit that comes to mind is the scale of the action that's required, so the geographic scale. There's some of those aspects there around procurement, skills and training, where there's there'll be commonality in terms of some of the challenges that we've got here. is there crossover here in terms of the Mid Wales Growth Deal and some of the work streams under there? Is it a case of trying to influence some of those things that are already progressing, but potentially can be can add extra value in terms of this particular sort of set of outcomes, or even in terms of the Marches Forward partnership, where again, I suspect there'll be scope here in terms of thinking about what the best route is for delivering some of these things. So that's the key bit that sort of jumps out to me, really, is how do we focus in on that sort of additionality and make sure that we're trying to get that sort of mapping of where we're best trying to achieve those different outcomes, so we're clear in terms of what that footprint is in terms of the PSB bit, so that we get that maximum sort of bang for buck, really.
Yeah, thanks, Gavin. Some really good points. Gareth Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. I agree with Gavin's points there. And I think climate emergency is rightly a priority step for the PSB, and it really is about driving climate action across Powys, and the PSB is well placed to do that. I'd like to thank Liz and Lucy and their colleague Anne Harrod for all their work, because I think it is exemplary in terms of the stage one approach that we're taking. It comes across well in the annual report that Catherine outlined earlier, and that report did highlight the risks and challenges around funding work streams, including this one, going forward. But I think the PSB, us as individual organisations, at a community level, at a Welsh Government and national level, this is a top priority, and it's one that we need to build on and sustain the momentum for. In terms of delivering an action plan, there will be a whole range of interventions and funding opportunities to deliver that. But I think the key is to ensure that we have the right staff resource and coordination going forward. And there is a risk here that we lose that momentum if we're unable to identify funding in the short term and fill that gap. So I think while we can work collectively to look at the funding opportunities, external grant funding opportunities, there is a requirement within the PSB to look at how we can support this key step going forward as well. And there may be a short-term gap where we need to come together and strongly consider that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. That's really helpful. Diane and then Ewan, please.
Thanks. So I probably just need to say on the shared prosperity funding, obviously it's not the local panel that are stopping the shared prosperity funding. It's the UK government kind of funding pot, and there hasn't been any indication, and probably not really highlighted any manifesto of an indication of that funding continuing. So that, as far as I understand it, unless we hear anything different, and I'm not expecting to hear anything different, that those funding opportunities have ended, which is a shame, because I think there's this work and many other pieces of work that are, doing a fantastic job. So there'll be many projects that are coming to an end at that cliff edge, as you say, in December. In terms of the community element, you're quite right, Liz. I think there's many funding pots available to you, and I suggest you just ask our team, economy team, and I've just put the link in the chat there. If you just email that, they will look for funding opportunities for you. They've got like a search database that we pay for, that we can do a search for you to try and help with any of that. It won't cover all of it, like you quite rightly say, a lot of the time if we're trying to do something ourselves. And then my other point is kind of like, we each have, don't we, relevant officers in our own organisations, but we also have relevant officers across many local authorities in Wales, all trying to achieve the same thing. And I'm just wondering whether there's a call to the network, climate officers network, around what are other people doing, what we do together to actually make that more efficient. is there a way of trying to deliver what we want to deliver in terms of an action plan, but actually see how we can deliver that within the very meagre resources we all have. But actually, if it's really priority, then we probably should be looking at those anyway. And what we're trying to do, just trying to pick up on what we're trying to do, we've got huge ambition with the council, very limited funds, but actually that doesn't mean to say that we should change our ambition or not try and take that step forward, but actually just have a look at how we can achieve that in many different ways. So we're not at the end of that, we're not even halfway through. So, you know, that I think we can look at that in conjunction together to try and see how we can align all of those elements. And of course, we've got the regional work as well on energy and how that's progressing. And I think Gavin mentioned the Marches partnership, etc. I don't think those are going to come up with any funding anytime soon. So it's not going to be a miracle cure to our funding gap, but just some ideas of how we could still take the ambition forward, because it would be a real shame to not keep going, wouldn't it, once we've done this initial piece of work.
Indeed it would. Yes, it would be a real shame. Ewan, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I think the other shame, I think, really for us is that, you know, the WFG in terms of that act has been, you know, world leading really in terms of formation of the act, and they fell short of just putting that one thing in place for us, which was the funding aspect of it, which would just have tipped it right over the edge in terms of being there at the fore. But it is what it is. We're dealing with the act as it is, with the RPB with a significant pot of money to deal with, but PSBs having no funding whatsoever. I think as a PSB in Powys, I think we're absolutely on the right track with those three focus areas. So it should absolutely continue to be a priority area for us to look at. But I get the challenges of the funding. I really don't like the option of going back to ask the public for something. They're already paying for all the public sector provision across the country already through their taxation. So to ask again, I think doesn't fit with me personally, but it does just take me back then to Welsh Government, because, you know, at the end of the day, I'm sure I saw something on the news the other day that put us either second or third as a country in the world for recycling, which, you know, really hard-hitting, high-hitting lines for government there. So, you know, if they want us to really progress this and get somewhere by 2030, which again would be world-leading, then we need to put something behind it as well. So I think in the first instance for me, it's got to go back to government. Thank you, Chair.
No, thank you. Right. Mez, and then we'll try and come to a conclusion. Mez.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Liz, both for your passion and drive and the work that you're doing, which is absolutely great, really. So I won't repeat what anybody else has said, but just add a few things and trying to pull a few things together as well. I think in terms of the funding, I think it's quite clear, isn't it, really, for all the sort of the programmes, and likewise in Healthy Weights, really, that if we can align the system, but we need enablers, don't we, or small pots of money in terms of delivering elements, really. So I support really what's already been said around we can bring these strategic partnerships together, align them around key priorities, but we need that, you know, a bit of funding to be the enabler, because the Wellbeing Act is looking at how we make decisions that influence the future sort of generations, as well as shaping our policy, which technically may not need funding. There is programmes of work that do need sort of funding as well. And then I'm not sure around, I don't think you were at the meeting earlier on, Liz, we changed the agenda around, and some of that was partly my fault. The Shaping for Places for Wellbeing programme, which I mentioned earlier on, does have climate change as one of its sort of priorities nationally, and there is a learning set around systems sort of set up really. It's not too late to join that element, really. We can probably pick up outside the meeting with yourself and James just to check what, whether you want to have a rep there. But I noticed in the annual report it talked about not having, or challenging, I should say, to know what everybody's doing across Powys, but equally an action to develop an action plan by the end of the year. And it just strikes me really that there's something in that there will be reps from PSBs across Wales at the national group around shaping places, which climate change is one priority, so learning from others, but equally around the systems approach, which would form sort of an action plan, because it's probably important, isn't it, that most of us, all organisations, will be doing stuff around climate change, but here quite clearly it's not going to be enough, nowhere near where we need to get to. So it's how do we galvanise that energy, and equally we need to be saying to organisations, this is what you need to do. Does that make sense? Element really. So yeah, just an offer of link up there to the National Learning Set if that wasn't available previously.
Right. No, thank you. Okay, so how do we as a PSB now progress this? I mean, just from my perspective, it seems that obviously each organisation that makes up the PSB is having to take its own decisions around the way they operate in order to meet the net zero targets. But it would be a shame if, in doing that work, that we duplicate what each other is doing. There must be, surely this. If there's anything there's a role for the PSB in, this must be this. This must be the one thing that the PSB is best suited to deliver, because this is an all-encompassing issue, equally affecting us all. We're all absolutely strapped for cash. Everybody knows everybody's budgets are under extreme strain. However, the amount of money that actually Liz is looking for from the paper, where has it gone? There has it gone? So the preferred option one, which is to continue as they are and doing the work that they're doing. Am I right, Liz? So these costs, these staffing costs, are really what that's the cost, is it? That's the total cost.
That's the core staffing cost, and then on top of that, if we were to need to, I don't know, yeah, then we'll need operational costs potentially to do various things. So, for example, if there was going to be a big public communications initiative, we would perhaps need some budget for that. But the idea of having the core staffing is that then that would have the capacity to reach out and fundraise and draw into these extra resources. Yeah.
So my question is, if by collectively all the organisations represented here today were to somehow find that money from their collective budgets, that would presumably that potentially relieves those individual organisations of some of the work that they're going to have to do, because some of this, because as Mez just pointed out, a lot of this work is about producing an action plan, which then will guide the way that we all proceed with this issue and take the actions we need to take to meet the eventual goals. So I'm just wondering, is the net cost across the public sector as a whole, or the PSB membership, it could be nil, couldn't it? Effectively, because all you're doing is, instead of each individual organisation spending some money on this, they're giving it, or they're contributing to these, what are on the face of it, in the great scheme of things, relatively modest costs when compared to the collective budgets of all of our organisation. And the reason I'm raising this now is because we're having these discussions regularly at county council level between the cabinet and the corporate leadership team in particular, and one of the things we're crying out for is a clear action plan as to what it is that we need to do to to achieve net zero as an organisation. And then part 2 of that discussion is how on earth do we fund the actions as well as finding out what we need to do. And this is the finding out what we need to do bit, isn't it? Have I interpreted this right?
So by the end of the year, we'll have a top line analysis of what we need to do with clarity about who should do what. So back to Gavin's point, absolutely, it's about identifying. They've got all these organisations with different responsibilities and different geographical areas, sometimes with the region and so on. So it's about really understanding across all the different sectors of, energy, transport, land use and so on, what does success look like? And who can do what. So hopefully by the end of the year, the plan definitely is by the end of the year that we will have a strategic climate action plan that sets that out. And then the next phase of money will be about how do you turn that into action? So how do we further crystallise projects out of that? And how do we do some of the work about holding together the stakeholders and all the different actors that need to take action, because the duplication and the inefficiency can happen at every level, can't it? So we need to have some central capacity to hold the vision and hold the overall plan, and to enable people to feed in, to make sure that we're identifying and seizing opportunities and making opportunities as well. So I think that is the right approach. I think it is about, ultimately this should be a sort of net zero cost for organisations if we're doing the job well, and the attempt to do it well is the responsibility of all of us together, isn't it, to make sure we shape what that work plan looks like and is the value that the organisations think it needs to be. So I think, and just to come back on Diane's point, we have reached out to your team, and they have, that's great to be able to use that resource to identify funding pots. And we totally will continue to work and write funding bids and so on. But like we've identified, we don't think that's going to be the source of the core funding for this project. So it seems to me, if people, and I also share the hesitancy about crowdfunding, but I wanted to put it on because it had been suggested. We do have the option of potentially the board writing to Welsh Government or the Future Generations Commissioner or whatever, and making the case for a pot of money to become available from there, or for, as Councillor Gibson, what we're saying, to consider kind of sourcing it from the organisations that are members of the PSB, unless you can think of another option.
No, you summed it up much better than I did. I mean, this is how I see it. This is effectively the member organisations delegating to you and your team the work of creating the action plan, from which we will then develop our individual series of actions to meet the action plan. So Diane, you had your hand up.
I think Liz already covered it, Councillor James, what I was going to say.
Okay, so Ewan.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, just on that point, then, not that I'm not supportive of it, but it does involve some challenges,
Sure.
certainly for our service, in terms of we sit on 6 public service boards, and we've tried to maintain a consistent approach to requests for funding for these sorts of things across the 6 of the areas, so that we are consistent in that approach. It's also a mid-year approach, which would make it more challenging again. So I'd have to take it back to our board for approval. I wouldn't be able to say yay or nay just here for myself today.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that at all. And similarly, I'm not in a position to say yay or no, and I doubt Gavin or anybody else or any of the health board representatives are. What we're trying to do is trying to agree a course of action, a way to proceed in our own individual ways, and it'll be a similar approach. As you say, we have to take it back for decision or consideration to our individual organisations. But it strikes me that the paper that Liz has prepared is a good basis for a report to whether it be the fire authority or the county council's cabinet or where it might be, to which we can all speak as required, and then report back to the next meeting of the PSB as to how what each organisation is saying about this, and how we. I mean, it's probable we'll come up with some differences, no doubt. But one way or another, we've got to. It strikes me that really this PSB, and I guess all PSBs across Wales, are going to have to find this money one way or another to continue this work, because otherwise, the work that Liz has done so far and her team would be largely go to waste, which would be a great shame. Diane, so from our perspective, the county council perspective, I can say that we will take this back, and I think we need a report to cabinet, do we not, on this, and some recommendations, I think, as well to go with that. That I will certainly commit to, and we'll do that as quickly as we can. Gavin.
Yeah, I guess parallels with Iwan's situation, really.
Cross region, yeah.
Yeah, operate on an all Wales basis, where I think due to take our net zero plan to our board in the autumn. I certainly think that there's scope for us to share, both the sort of the thinking and the practical sort of outcomes from that to help to inform other organisations' work here. And again, it's that balance, isn't it, between support versus making sure that we're owning this challenge individually as organisations as well as collectively as a public sector, and broader than the public sector in terms of third sector, and how we engage effectively with private sector as well, recognising the nature of the county and the nature of the private sector that we have then. So yeah, just to set out that there is that sort of individual context will vary between organisations.
Understood and accepted completely. Gareth.
I just wanted to endorse your approach, Chair. I think if we could twin track both the external funding opportunities and opportunities within the Public Service Board organisations, then that will be a good way to go. Ultimately, we do need a coordination role for the step, and ensuring continuity is going to be key, I think. So it is a big challenge. It's an opportunity. But I think having that discussion and the way forward you suggested is a good way to go.
Okay, thank you. Met from the Health Board.
Hello, hi. Yeah, so just to explain now, Wi-Fi was dropping out, so I put my camera off, hoping that's better. So it's sort of challenging, and I'm just reflecting on, Chair, what you were saying around development of sort of an action plan, and then organisations be able to look at that action plan and how it sort of applies to them, really, which is the systems approach, really. And it just sort of strikes me, development of that action plan is quite crucial, isn't it? And that also could be quite influential for organisations to have the discussion as well around some of the options of, future funding, coordination, etc. So I'm sort of just wondering, in terms of timescale, I appreciate we're looking at end of December to intending to have that action plan. Is that the timescale, or would it be earlier to the next PSB in is it October, next PSB, etc.? So element really, and how that then would influence organisations to look at that action plan and what's required and how they fit in that from a systems approach. And I would be keen to know really around that national engagement to the national climate change sort of actions that are going on as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. When is our next PSB? Can somebody guide me?
September.
The 26th of September.
Right. So, and the one after that would be after January the 1st, would it not? Next year?
December, I think, isn't it? 11th of
Yeah,
December.
we've got one in
Oh, there is
December. It should be on the
oh,
agenda.
Yeah, sorry, I should see that. Right. So timescales in terms of bringing this back to the PSB. Well, let's have a put it on the agenda for the next one for updates. We may not have, because of August and summer break and everything. It may be we won't get a huge amount of progress. Liz, you've got your hand up.
Yes, so really what we need is some sustained core funding so that we can keep staffing together and continuity and all of that sort of thing. There is a risk that unless we have some certainty of funding, relatively soon, the core staff working on this project, frankly, are just going to start looking for other jobs. One option potentially could be, instead of what's in the paper, which is a sort of a 15-month sums of money for continuing the staffing, it could be that we see if PSB organisations could potentially cover just a shorter period of time, for example 6 months, in the first 6 months of 2025, in order to kind of get over this sort of initial jeopardy to potentially to even just finishing this phase of the project, be a much smaller sum of money, and it would enable the organisations to have longer to think about potential other funding sources. Potentially, I imagine conversations with Welsh Government could take quite a long time to convince them, and so on. So I mean, one option could be that I could work with the different organisations to support papers going to relevant senior bodies within each organisation to make the case for funding for this, and it could have a range of options, but one of the options could be much smaller than this. It could be a 6-month funding extension supported by these organisations. I don't know, would that be helpful as a way forward? Would that seem more achievable?
Well, yeah, I mean, the difficulty, I think, and has been alluded to, is that we are it's an in-year thing, isn't it? That the problem is the budgets for 2025/6 won't be set until February, March of next year, and yet you need more funding from January the 1st.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you need an indication of what you're going to get long before that, in order, as you've just pointed out, that people don't suddenly say, "Well, look, goodness me, I'm not going to have a job in a few months' time. I must go and look for something else." So, yeah, I mean, I think this meets some fairly rapid action at organisation level, and so Diane, I mean, I can't, obviously, I'm speaking from the chair here, but as a Powys County Council, I can't speak for other organisations. But Diane, I don't know how quickly we could get something to cabinet. It would have to now be in early September, I guess.
Yeah, earliest to be mid-September now.
Yeah. And then we would have I would be able to report back to the September meetings of PSB, all being well. But I don't know how other organisations are fixed on this. But I don't know your meeting cycles or anything like that. So I know it's very difficult. But let's put this on the agenda. And can I leave it that officers will liaise with each other to on this issue? And if necessary, if only a verbal report at next PSB, produce that, and just give us some feedback about what the view is from each organisation about how we should proceed. Is that okay? I think that's probably the best we can do, Liz. I'm sorry, it's not very satisfactory, I have to say.
In addition to that, does this meeting want to take a decision to approach Welsh Government?
We can do so. I mean, obviously, every PSB is probably going to be in a similar position to this, I guess, and I suspect they're getting quite a lot of messages from PSBs across Wales, especially if SPF is coming to an end, and it seems that it is, and that we don't have any indication of what's going to replace it. And as Diane says, we don't anticipate hearing anything anytime soon. So, Diane.
I'm just wondering if we're approaching Welsh Government from a PSB perspective, it should probably come from the PSB Secretariat, and picking up on Mez's point, whether it should just be about climate or delivering the ambition of PSBs, including climate as a major element of that. So it would be a huge factor, wouldn't it, in what we're trying to deliver as a PSB. But I'm just wondering whether we need to put a marker in the sand to deliver, to help deliver the joined ambition and give us that kind of fund.
I am conscious of time. I know we're running over now. And we've got more on the agenda. What Catherine, can you remind us how much discussion takes place between PSBs around these issues at officer level?
Not a lot.
There isn't a kind of coordinating, overarching forum within which senior officers meet to.
Well, they attend sort of Welsh Government led sessions, but Jim, would they be called? They're not that regularly held.
So they are held on a 6 month. They're held on a 6 monthly basis. But I'm happy to reach out to the other PSB coordinators and see what their situation is around this kind of thing, and see how they've approached this kind of collective challenge as well in terms of the funded arrangements.
Yes, because it would be obviously a much more powerful thing if we, as PSBs collectively, went to Welsh Government and said, "What are we going to do about this?" Because individually we're just one, and yes, we can ask, but they're not going to give Powys PSB special treatment. If they're going to help fund this work, then it's going to probably have to be a Pan Wales approach, I would imagine. Okay, I don't think we can do much more with this issue today. Can I leave it with the relevant officers to coordinate their work together and at individual organisation level to liaise with members and officers to first of all to raise awareness of the issue, and then to seek a suggested way to proceed, so that we can report back to the next meeting of PSB and hopefully give Liz some comfort, but we'll see. Is that okay? And then yes, we'll. If James, if you can reach out to PSB coordinators across Wales and find out what's going on in each area, or as many areas as you can, that would be helpful. And we do have Anne Watkin on the call from Welsh Government. And are you able to assist in any way with this?
Sorry, Leader. I think I'm going to have to take this away. This is outside of my remit and responsibility, but I think the point you're flagging about, this might not be just the one PSB that's in this scenario, but it might be a collective. And as you know, Welsh Government budget is also under immense pressure as well.
He knows that, yeah.
So I'm afraid I can't offer a solution, but I have made a note of it, and I will take it away. And if I have any intelligence, I'll come back, perhaps through Diane, to you all.
That would be really helpful.
Thank you.
I think that's probably the best. I think this is the best we can do at this stage, and we'll put this on the agenda for the next PSB, Liz, and hopefully we'll have a bit more coherence and a bit more news as to how we're going to proceed. Is that okay? I'm sorry, it's not as precise as I would like by a long chalk, but I think it's probably the best we're going to get. And thank you very much for your presentation and the work that's been done, which is absolutely outstanding. So we're all extremely grateful for that.
Thank you.
Grand. Okay. If there's nobody else wishing to say anything, let's move on. Go back to the agenda. So we unless I've missed something, we've got the reports from town and community councils. I've lost the agenda now. What has happened to it? Let's go back to the agenda. Apologies, we've been jumping about on the agenda and I've rather lost my place. We've also got a presentation to come from the Centre for Digital Public Services. Are Harriet Green or Myra Hunt in the room?
I'm here. It's Harriet here, Chair. I was just going to say, if you would like me to go away and come back another day, I can do that. I know you've got a lot on your agenda and your.
I think we are running over time. I know there are members having to leave now, which is rather against the point. I do apologise. We got
no, don't worry. I completely understand. I completely understand. You've got a lot. You've got a lot on your agenda, and I'm perfectly happy to do that if that is the most sensible thing to do today.
That'd be extremely helpful. Yes, thank you very much. And I do, as I say, I do apologise. And thank you for coming.
Don't worry at all. It's been good to have this little insight into,
how
you're working and what you're dealing with.
You can see the difficulties we face, which are pretty immense. I can. But the good thing is we're all pulling in the same direction, and we're just the only thing we don't know is quite how to get to the destination. That's the problem. But anyway,
and there are quite a few destinations, aren't there?
Rather anyway. A lot, yeah. So thank you so much for
no, don't worry. That's
attending.
That's absolutely fine. It's been good to have a quick look at you, and I'll be very happy to come back at another time.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Okay. So that's item 9 dealt with, if rather unsatisfactorily, but there we are. So we have the town council reports before us. Is there, for which we are very grateful, annual reports, and they are very comprehensive, if I may say so. Does anybody wish to comment on the town council reports? Catherine.
We have a representative from Brecon Town Council with us. Is it John is on the call?
Yes, I can sort of rattle through 5 minutes in allotted time if you want me to.
John, thank you very much for coming. Please do present the report. That's very kind of you. Thank you.
Okay, hopefully it's loading. Yeah, can you see that full screen or?
We can, yes.
Yeah, good. Okay, great. Thank you for letting me to come along today. So this is pretty much the same as you've got in your packs, just in a different format. So this presentation regards the annual report for Brecon Town Council for the years 2023 to 24. It details the council's work, including the wellbeing objectives and general information about the council. The council consists of 15 town councillors across 4 wards, and the council has 3 committees, Planning, Guildhall, Staffing Committee, Finance and Commissioner Contracts Committee, and the Environment and Events Committee. Each committee is responsible for different aspects of the town's management, from planning applications to managing parks and organising events. So the town clerk, Fiona Williams, was appointed back in 2014 and plays a crucial role in the council, providing legal and financial guidance, project management and staff administration. The council also appoints up to 2 community youth representatives to represent the interests of individuals under the age of 18. In terms of finances, the council's income for 2023-24 was £627,103, include the precept of £589,240, with an expenditure of £577,337. The council is also committed to meeting the local objectives and the local wellbeing plan as per the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act 2015. So this report includes detailed accounts of the activities and contributions of each committee, highlighting their efforts towards achieving the local objectives, highlighting in colours as you can see here. The council has been in.
Sean, sorry to interrupt.
The
shared screen's not moving on. I don't know whether. Maybe it's me, or maybe it's my machine.
Just moving on the screen, perhaps not on.
No, same for me.
No, those are the ones. So I'll just take it up to.
Take it to where you've got to.
Yeah, there's a couple of slides. Apologies.
No, that's fine.
So the council has been involved in various projects and initiatives, including the appointment of members to outside bodies, funding of crossing patrol facilities, negotiations to secure the retention of island fields in Brecon as a community space, and participation in the Smart Towns project in Powys to be the pilot town in that project. So just try and go through these. I've got them in the bottom. As I said, these are pretty much what you've got in your
report,
in your pack. The report concludes with an overview of the Council's contribution to the National Wellbeing Goals and Powys County Council's 12 being steps. The Council's work aligns with these goals and steps, reflecting their commitment to creating a prosperous, resilient, healthy and equal community. The report was approved by Brecon Town Council on the 22nd of April 2024. So as I say, these slides are pretty much what you've got in your pack, just in a different format, but if there's any questions you have, feel free to ask.
No, thank you very much. It's very commendable and comprehensive report, if I may say so. And it does, it's actually a really useful. People often ask what do town and community councils do? Well, you can see that Brecon Town Council.
I get that all the time as a town council.
Yeah. But you can see the town council does a lot, and I suspect a lot of your local residents don't realise how much.
And there's a lot. There's umpteen working groups as well, but for different projects and things.
Yeah, no, absolutely right.
And we're constrained with finances, as you were saying earlier in the meeting, for things such as net zero and climate change and things. We just have to sort of absorb that and embed it in every sort of thing that we approach, really.
Yeah.
Be mindful of that.
No, exactly. Ms. Bowley would like to ask a question or make a comment.
Sure.
Hello, yeah, thank you. Great report, absolutely. And I just want to commend you really for involvement of two youth representatives on.
Well, I came up with that scheme, funny enough, a couple of years ago, but we were sort of impacted by the onset of COVID, and it's got up to scratch now. But I know other town councils that have done it in Wales alone, that I've been in touch with, they tend to get very positive and proactive young people, and then they distracted by exams and other pursuits, so it's very hard to keep hold of anybody once we've sort of recruited them, and to find projects and things to keep their motivation and interests sort of high.
Yeah, great, well done.
Well done indeed. I don't have any further questions. Gavin Bow.
Just a quick query, and it's useful to see Ystrad Gynlais as well, and having both the reports at the same time. So just sort of wondered how much dialogue there is between both town councils and sort of sharing of learning from both.
Well, that's a good thing. There's certain events, like there's been the climate events at Llandrindod, where certain councillors go along and feedback and network there. I sort of go around Powys wearing my sort of work hat for the local health board, so I sort of meet a lot of town councillors and through other sort of pursuits and interests of things. So so I'm in touch with various ones in other areas of Powys and various other sort of mayors elsewhere. So it's interesting to compare and contrast, but towns are different.
Yeah,
and we're all trying to sing from the same hymn sheets, but some of it could be aligned. But yeah, people assume because you're a mayor of town council, you meet all the other town councillors across Powys or Wales, which isn't the case. Same goes, for county councillors, really. The county councillors do meet, but they may not necessarily meet county councillors in other counties.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for that. Yeah, because I recognise that the challenges will be slightly different in each location, but
Absolutely.
Whether you've got that sort of group of peers that you can sort of support
there are
each
similarities, and we do sort of pick each other's brains from time to time on certain things to see, say how Abergavenny is approaching something, or other more sort of localized to Powys.
Good, thanks.
Great. Lovely. Okay. Ms, is that an old hand or a new one?
A new one, if I may.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So just joining things up, I'm not quite sure, John, whether you were on earlier on when we were presenting some work around healthy weights, which is a priority, and sort of just strikes me really whether there's an opportunity for further discussion we will be shortly, as you know, organisations launching breastfeeding welcome sort of schemes really, and I'm just wondering whether we could have a discussion around town councils really, and whether there's opportunity to link up to support sort of implementation and rollout of that scheme, and welcome town council's view.
Yeah, absolutely, because I wear many hats, you know, in the communications and engagement team and the health board, and I'm a trustee of Brecon Volunteer Bureau, and you know, involved in all sorts of different things locally. So I network and spread, you know, knowledge and good practice as much as I can, and I try to embed, you know, certain things that the health board are doing and Powys County Council, and give them a push or see what we can do sort of to promote them as well. So locally now we're trying to do with the sort of vape scheme in Powys, and last week or the week before there was alcohol awareness week, so I cajoled the local pub to have a alcohol awareness drink free festival with bands and stuff to try and get that messaging across and so on. So but there's, you know, there's loads of work to do on any of those particular projects and things. It's just juggling them all and trying to prioritize and get it as much of good messaging and things out there to people really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, John.
No problem.
Really interesting and a good discussion. Thank you for your report, and we look forward to next year's.
It's a pleasure. Yeah.
It does seem like
somebody
yesterday.
else.
It seems like yesterday we had last year's, but
yes,
this year's
it
flying
didn't seem
by
long
now.
since I was doing the first one for us about 3 years ago.
Yeah,
when I was mayor previously.
Well, anyway, would you convey our thanks to the rest of your colleagues on the council?
I will do, of course. Yeah, full council next Monday, so I'll feed back to them.
It is much appreciated.
Yeah,
so thank you.
If any more you want to know or can think of any sort of collaborations or anything, then just let us know, obviously.
Absolutely fine. Thank you very much indeed. Super.
Okay. Thank you.
Great. We have the Astragon Nice one as well, but nobody to speak to it, Catherine. Is that right?
No, just for information purposes.
Good. Different style, but equally interesting. So, and again, highlights actually that, you know, what a lot of work does go on at local level, run by town councils, all of whom are volunteers, which is you know, makes it all the more commendable, to be frank. Is there anything that anybody wishes to ask or say about the Astragon Nice one? No? Okay. Great. Right. Where are we now? I think we've done the agenda. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is there anything else? Is there any other business? We have the future dates of future meetings there, and PSB Forward Work Programme. Is there anything to report on that, Catherine?
No, just for information down at the bottom. So if everyone could have a look, or if there's anything that they wish to bring along, please let the team know so that we can plot that on there.
And then we have closed session. What's that about? Sustainability updates. Is there anything to report there? No?
No, that was just added on, wasn't it? If people wanted to wish to speak about sort of more of the sustainability from each organisation's perspective in a closed session.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Well, it's been a long afternoon. I think probably I think we ought to draw this to a close now. That's okay. Unless there's anything burning that anybody wishes to add at this stage. Okay. Right. All right. Thanks one and all. And we'll see you in September, and we'll perhaps see you at the show. Those of you who are going, there's quite a lot of events on there in the Powys Pavilion in Brecon, and involving not just Powys County Council but lots of other organisations as well. So may see some or all of you there. Grand. Okay. Bye for now, and thanks for your attendance.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you.